What's up, guys? So, a couple people have been telling me that they've had problems getting down pivots. So, I made this short video explaining how I like to do them and how I like to hold the orbit when I pivot. So, to start, I like to hold the strings on my two middle fingers like this. And then from here, I like to wrap the strings around my index fingers until I find a length that I feel comfortable spinning with. So notice how my entire index finger is wrapped inside the string. Not my other fingers, just my index finger. And it might feel comfortable for me and not other people, but I've noticed that I'm able to control the string a lot more by having it on one finger than a bunch of fingers. And sorry. And when you have the string wrapped around only one finger, it takes much less of a movement to keep the orbit spinning really fast, because all I have to do is constantly tug at the string with one finger versus an entire hand. And keeping the tension high is the key to pivoting, because the only way you can do a pivot is with the torque high. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so now that you know how to hold the orbit in order to do a pivot, I'm going to show you how to pivot. So, if this is the first time you're hearing about pivots, it's pretty much the movement of one arm while the other is still. And in order to keep the orbit spinning while pivoting, you have to constantly be tugging at the strings while you're pivoting. And it might seem hard to do, but the longer you do it for, the more natural it's going to start to feel. So that's how to pivot. And a problem some people have when they're pivoting is that they won't know where to take their pivots. And by that, I mean they're essentially stuck at one spot because they don't know the next motion. Because they don't know the next motion to make with their arm to keep the combo going. Which is why I made this quick outline of the grid on my wall right here. And sorry, I'm just adjusting the camera. Sorry about my cat. Okay. So, if you don't know what the grid is, it's this imaginary coordinate plane that's in front of you at all times while you're giving a light show. And the purpose of the grid is pretty much so that you can move the orbits around it so that it makes your light show more presentable. And if you keep the grid in mind while you're pivoting, you'll be able to know where to move the orbit next, right? Because you're always gonna see these imaginary intersections of the lines, and that's how you know where you're gonna take the orbit next. And you can pretty much move around the grid in two main ways. You can do a pivot, or you can just do a linear isolation. And what makes shows look really cool is by applying the two together. So not just pivoting around the grid, but also isolations around the grid. that. So I'm going to try to move around the grid with pivots and isolations. Like that. And keeping the grid in mind is going to help keep your pivot combos lasting a lot longer, and it's just going to make it more appealing to the eye, because you're not just like moving the orbit around everywhere with no direction, because that kind of looks uncontrolled and chaotic. It's all about very precise, controlled movements. Like that. I hope that makes sense. Let me know if you have any other questions. I'll make another video if I have to, if I missed out on something. But yeah, happy spinning.